Welcome to Beacon of Speech. I'm Fred Hunt. That's Ted Coley. Welcome, Ted Coley.
Hello, Fred.
How are you doing today?
Okay.
This is Beacon of Speech. What is Beacon of Speech? We sell freedom of speech to everybody. We're going to try not to take freedom of speech away from anybody today. Aren't we just grand citizens today?
What's the special occasion?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll try. By the end of the show, we'll be bitching about something. So, we got a challenge from our one fan. Technically we have two fans, but our one fan. He said, whatever we do, don't do a show on fidget spinners. Do you know what a fidget spinner is, Ted Coley?
No, I do not.
Okay, about 5 or 10 years ago, my kids were real little. They're like, preschool age, right? And there was a fad called silly bands, and they were colored rubber bands, and you'd wear them around your wrist, and you'd wear 20 of them, and they'd be shapes of circles, triangles. Do you remember silly bands?
I remember people wearing bands around there.
Well, basically, they're rubber bands, so you could make a pack for like 5 cents, sell them for $1, and then they sold 100 million packs. Well, you do the math, you made a crap load of money. It's like the pet rock or whatever other fad you want. Joe Coffin, who's not here today, he always said, Fred, you shouldn't do Beacon of Speech, you shouldn't do a movie, you shouldn't do a website. You need to come up with something where me and you, not you, you're out of this harebrained scheme to make money, okay? He said, we need to come up with something where everybody will buy it, and it only costs us a few pennies to make, and we'll make $100 million, and we'll just sit at home drinking margaritas and putting our feet up on the beach, okay? Now, the newest thing in the world, and I'm going to show you, is the fidget spinner. My kids bought a fidget spinner when they first came out for $2.99. All it is a piece of plastic that spins around with ball bearings in it, okay? Now, I'm going to give it to you to play with and see if you can put it down or if you think it's stupid. You're our test case. Now, our one fan said, don't do a show on fidget spinners, so we're going to lose one of our only fans. That's the way we roll at Beacon of Speech, Ted Coley. So, this is a fidget spinner. We're going to hold it up to the camera. Now, I don't want to break the computer, but this is all it does. If you want, you could turn off the light. This one glows in the dark, I believe. Turn off the light, see if it glows in the dark. Ooh, it does, but the camera picked it up. You can turn it back on. Now, I would spin it faster, but I don't want it to spin off and hit the camera. So here you go. You can do whatever you want with it, but all it is ball bearings and plastic. Now, when you get bored with it, you can spin it as fast as you can. You can put 3 fidget spinners together. You can put it on the computer. It won't be on the camera, right? That costs $2.99. Now, how much do you think it probably made to cost? How much do you think it costs to make that?
Maybe 50 cents.
Yeah. So, Joe Kaufman's theory is, me and him, not you, but you can edge your way in, is we have to come up with something like the fidget spinner. Now, the fidget spinner technically has been around for a couple of years. I guess they made them for kids with ADD and special ed kids because they wouldn't pay attention. And so they would fidget around and this would focus them. And you would just play with it. Well, it became the fad of 2017. Well, the reason I'm asking is because I want to know. Now, it's unfair of me to say because I've played with my kids' fidget spinners and, thrown them everything. But since you are new to the fad, you have to tell me if it's easy to put down or do you think it's captivating?
It is kind of captivating.
And it's simple as pie. Now, the fidget spinner, we'll hold it back up to the camera again. The fidget spinner, turn it sideways for a second.
What do you mean?
Oh, like face this way, right? All it is plastic with something in here, and then in here the ball bearings to spin, right? Well, apparently bad kids have popped these out and then tried to choke on them, right? So they said fidget spinners are dangerous. Well, as long as your kid's not a maniac popping the sides out, it's fairly, easy. Now, places like, where's that, Toys R Us, right? They think that's going to be the biggest fad for the next 5 years. So they got $10 fidget spinners that light up. They got like Iron Man fidget spinner. You see what I'm saying? They got 2-arm fidget spinner, 5-arm fidget spinners. Like I said, this is your basic model. And the next phase is we're going to have 100 types of fidget spinners. But I'm telling you, in 5 years, this is going to be silly bands. Okay? Even if you make it light up, so instead of costing 50 cents, you're making something for $2 and selling it for 10. You see what I'm saying? Now, I'm already seeing that Ted's loving the fidget spinner. Would you say that this is cooler than silly bands?
Yeah, I would say so. This is
So
cool.
this is for you to play with for the whole thing and see if you're like, you're going to do it for the whole hour and a half, or if you're going to set it down and say, this is stupid. Or if you're like, I want another one. I want a green one, I want a blue one, I want a yellow one. So, I apologize to our one fan, Adam. So, because he specifically said not to talk about fidget spinners.
He forbid us from talking.
Yeah, he forbid us from talking about it. But it goes back to who came up with it. Did a special ed teacher come up with it and the guy's going to make $10 million? Or did like somebody at Matal come up with it and, you know, they got $50,000 a year in their salary and then Matal makes $10 million? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know who makes them. There is literally no markings on this whatsoever. For all you know, it's a Chinese star and I'm tricking you, right? And it's a way to slice up your hand and kill yourself. But I have heard that you can take them apart and choke on them. So you're impressed with the fidget spinner?
Yeah.
Okay, that's yours. Not to keep, because I have to take it back to Alex. But for this show, you can play with it or throw it, or we can turn off the lights. We'll do it in the dark.
Does he only have this one?
No, he has two. He has a light green one, but it doesn't glow in the dark like this one. And then my daughter has one, but I think she lost it. And again, I would see kids, you know, all day long with my job, and kids are in there coming up with all kinds of different fidget spinners. And supposedly this summer, you know, again, 1,000 different fidget spinners. Yesterday, my kids went to the mall, right? And my daughter went to the fidget spinner kiosk, and she was harassing the poor fidget spinner lady, you know, and giving her grief. So there's somebody selling fidget spinners who hates my kid. So what do you think about that?
And it seems to be, like, pretty well made.
Yeah, that's the thing. When my son had the plastic one, it was not as well made as that one. That thing's sturdy. It's heavier than I thought.
Yeah.
So, but the first one, because he left it out in the rain and didn't take care of it, it's already starting to rust a little bit. Well, for $3, who cares if it rusts? You know what I mean? Now, the $15 fidget spinner, you're like, well, you know, you're going to have to take care of that. But at the end of the day, it's still a $15 fidget spinner. When the fad is over, it's going to be in the closet. Or do you think I'm wrong? Just playing with it. Do you think that's got staying power?
No, it'll fizzle out.
But yes,
I mean,
couldn't get over how
because
heavy
everything
it is.
does. I mean,
see, what we can do is here.
You know, like the Rubik's Cube. Remember how popular that was?
Oh yeah, we can put the fidget spinner right here, and we can. Oh crap! See, we're bad with the fidgets. See what happens when you give old people fidget spinners, Ted? Here.
You know what?
We'll see how long it spins.
Can you put this like in one of the?
Yeah. Here, we'll try that. Here, let's see what happens. See, we're playing. Isn't this entertaining radio that we're playing with fidget spinners?
Let's see. No, that's not going to work.
It was a good idea, though. We're going to put this here. We're going to see how long it spins. See, everybody's yelling at the TV. You got to set it down and then spin it. So, and there it goes. So, since we last talked to you, Ted Coley, Beacon of Speech website, I have done 8 articles in the last 2 weeks. Do you want to know about any of them that I did? Ted doesn't. He wants to play with the fidget spinner. This is like when the kids first get the fidget spinner. If you listen close, you can hear it rotating on the table. Okay. Here, give me the pen. Here's the 8 articles I did since the last Beacon of Speech. I did an article about covers of California.
If you listen close, you can hear them slamming the door on my cell.
California Uber Alice. Are you familiar with that song by the Dead Kennedys?
What's it called?
California Uber Alice.
No.
Okay. Well, we'll cross that one out. And I grabbed the pen that doesn't write again. We are having all kinds of technical difficulties with Beacon of Speech today. So we won't talk about that article. Basically, I was saying California Uber Alice is a song about how horrible Governor Schwarzenegger was, and Pete Wilson, and Jerry Brown, and all the governors of California throughout time. Well, I figured that somebody would do a Trump cover version, but there was... Oh, go ahead.
Jerry Brown, not to interrupt,
Go ahead.
but I think one of the Manson followers was up for parole.
Yes.
And Jerry Brown nixed it, right?
Good. None of them
Which is kind of surprising to me, because isn't Jerry Brown kind of out there?
Yeah, but even he knows not to let Manson followers out. So yeah, Manson followers are always trying to get out, and some of them are unrepentant, and some of them are like, oh no, we're gonna kill again. Let us out anyhow, because they're too stupid. Okay, second article I did. Who owns WJTB? The North Ridgeville radio station officially got its license pulled last month. So I did an article about that. And you live in Garfield Heights, I live in North Ridgeville, right?
Mm-hmm.
WJTB is a gospel station. How many people in North Ridgeville are listening to a gospel station?
None.
That's why it doesn't exist anymore. That was a very short article. Next one was modern times are depressing. Do you all know why modern times are depressing?
I already know that modern times are depressing.
I don't have to tell you.
I have my own
Why
reasons.
do I think modern times are depressing?
Why does Fred think modern times
Yes,
are
why
depressing?
does Fred? I'm going to pop open a Coke. Go ahead, because I am dying of thirst.
Let's see. If I was Fred, why would I think modern times are depressing? It probably has something to do with corporations.
For once, no. I had to do... my kid's going into high school. So a couple of weeks ago, I had to go to a seminar about heroin in our schools and how to cut the opioid crisis short. Basically, what they're saying is that all these kids are starting to get opiates, not on the street. They don't go straight to heroin, right? They're taking painkillers out of mom and dad's cupboard, out of aunt and uncle's cupboard, out of grandma and grandpa's cupboard. You know, grandma and grandpa are sick. They don't pay attention. Kids are stealing it out there, and that's where the opioid crisis is starting. And so what they're saying is kids aren't going straight to heroin. They're starting with other opioids.
Now, over the last, I don't know how many years, 10, 20, or however long it's been, they started prescribing opioids a lot more than they had in the past, right?
Yes.
So they were kind of always around, but
yes,
they were never prescribed to the degree that they had.
Because right now, the evil insurance companies, corporations, the evil insurance companies...
It's never far away.
A generation ago, what would happen is, say you had surgery, okay? You have surgery, you're in the hospital for 2 weeks, right? And for 2 weeks, they control your pain meds, right? Now, same surgery, I'm not even going to throw anything out because I'm not a good medical guy, right? Same surgery, you're in the hospital for 3 days, and then they give you a bottle full of pain pills and say, take these and be responsible, okay? Now, as you know about Americans, how many Americans are responsible when you give them a bucket full of pills?
Most are not.
Yeah, most are not, which is what started the opioid crisis. Now, some doctors will be like, oh no, it's not that simple. Yeah, it basically is. The insurance companies didn't want people in hospitals, save money, just give them the drugs. People aren't self-sufficient. We'll just take the drugs or sell them or, leave them in the cupboard for the kids to steal. So the article I wrote, it was 2 reasons modern times are depressing. One was the opioid crisis. So they're telling moms and dads, make sure your cabinet doesn't have any drugs that kids could get into, right? And they said that's where it starts. And it's just horrible that you have to tell parents not to leave painkillers in their own house. And when you take your kids to grandma and grandpa's house, watch out because they might try and go through their cabinets. So it's depressing that there has to be a group to warn you about how the heroin crisis starts in high school. You go back to the 50s where they're like, oh, he runs in the halls and they chew gum. Heroin, there's other than like suicide or teen pregnancy, I can't think of anything more serious than heroin. And that's like, oh, jeez.
Which was never a problem like when we were in school.
No, heroin's all new. Now, different drugs, you could say in the 60s and 70s.
Well, like when we were in school, it was pot.
Right.
And maybe coke.
Right.
But nobody Nobody was taking heroin.
No, nobody was doing it. So that was reason one, and then the second reason was I had to go to a seminar on active shooters in schools, and I'm like, we gotta do a seminar for this. So yeah, so do you want to hear why I had to go to this seminar? It's awesome, interesting stuff.
Now, is this when you said you were very busy yesterday? Is this part of what was going on? Or?
No, we had to run here, there, and the other place. I'll tell you off the air. So, active shooters, right? Basically,
another thing that I don't remember happening when I was in school.
Yeah, well, no, that's the thing. When you were going to school, right, do you remember duck and cover?
No.
They're going to drop the nuclear bomb, duck and cover. Do you remember that?
Well,
the same thing as tornadoes.
Well, I don't really remember the nuclear drills when I was in school. I know people before us.
Right. Did any of your brothers do that? Because they're older, right?
I don't think so. I know that I'm pretty sure my mom did that.
Well, basically what's happening is all the way back to the 50s, they taught duck and cover. Tornadoes, nuclear war, whatever, right? Well, now what's been happening is when these active shooters come, they've been using...
You know what? Wait a minute. On second thought, maybe when I was in grade school early on, I think I do remember doing something like that, probably for tornadoes.
Yeah. So,
but not for, like, nuclear, you know.
But so what happened is... what they found is active shooters come and they're like, oh crap, duck and cover, get onto your desk, blah, 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 right? And I'm going by what the seminar said, and they said basically what they found is the active shooters love duck and cover because they know duck and cover, and they're like, oh yeah, everybody's just hiding, bang, 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 you're all dead, right? And so now they're having a seminar called Run, Hide, Fight. Okay, so when the active shooter comes, the first thing you want to do is run, because the active shooters very rarely chase people. They're looking at
which is probably what your first instinct is,
right?
Anyway,
right. And so in the seminar, they're talking about, and again, I put the link on Beacon of Speech so you can get the real stuff. But the whole thing is, it's horrible that in America you have to have a seminar on active shooters. You know what I mean? And basically, they're saying run, hide, right? If you can't run, say you're trapped, hide. Like, say there's an active shooter in your front door. Me and you don't go under the table and go, oh crap, Beacon of Speech, under the table. We hide. Then the third thing is, say you are trapped. You are screwed. You are screwed. Okay? They said don't sit there and let them shoot you. Fight as a last resort. Because you're getting shot anyhow. If you get shot when you're sitting there or if you're shot when you're fighting.
So that'll be some fight. You don't have a gun and they do, and you're supposed to fight.
But that's what they said. They said the best way to win a gunfight is to have a gun. If you have a gunfight and you don't have a gun, well, you're going to lose, right? It's natural, But they said if you're screwed, you might as well go down fighting, and at least you have a fighting chance.
I'm just picturing... When you said that, I'm picturing that Jim Carrey movie, The Mask. Remember when he's like pulling his legs up?
Yep.
Because that guy's shooting at him, and he's
ducking, he's pulling his legs up. See, we got our active shooter shirts on from the movie,
and we didn't even coordinate.
We didn't even plan this, but so it's
we don't call each other before the show to see what we're wearing.
Well, and that's the whole thing. They're showing us videos. What to do in case of active shooter. Indiana had a good video. I can't remember what the other state was. What to do in case of active shooter. Like, the instructors were showing videos from state governments in other states. So somebody's doing these and setting them up, and I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying it's depressing. It's depressing that you have to do this. You know what I mean? Because when we were kids, we never had to do active shooter crisis intervention things.
No.
And so anyhow, one of the videos was funny. It was a school bus driver one. right? And they said, what happens if there's an active shooter on the school bus, right? And they gave you 3 options, right? Well, one of them is purposely wrong, right? One of them was option A, the guy gets on, the teenage kid gets on, then he pulls out the gun, right? Bus driver slams on the brake. Kid falls on the ground because it's a teenager, right? Bus driver runs out of the bus screaming.
Flailing his arms.
Well, yeah, he was. He runs out of the bus screaming, flailing his arms. And then at the end, they're like, please don't do the first thing. Please think of your children. And it was funny because I'm like, oh, man. So, but again, they said sometimes in a crisis situation, people don't think. They do what they're trained to do, right? Now, some people, you know, they're fast on their feet, and you can think of people like that at your work. But wouldn't you say there's certain people who you work with who, if you didn't tell them exactly what to do in the morning, they wouldn't know up from down? Would you say that's fair?
Yeah.
And so basically what they're training you in the active shooter event is use your instincts and get out of there. Don't duck and cover. And they're not trying to scare you, and they said hopefully it never happens. But statistically, it does happen, and I think me and you talked about it. Maybe we didn't. Did I tell you that the school district I was in when I was in grad school had an active shooter?
No, I don't think so.
Well, that's the other thing on Beacon of Speech. I put the link onto the article. In 1997, before Columbine, I was an intern at LeSueur Henderson High School in Minnesota. They had an active shooter. And they didn't have any protocol. I wasn't going to that school that semester. I was the intern in the spring, and it was like the second day of fall classes, right? And basically what happened is a kid got kicked out, and he was like in a halfway house or whatever it was. Right? I can't remember if it was juvie hall or halfway house, but he hated LeSueur Henderson High School. So all summer he was stewing, and he's planning out shooting up the school. 1997, and again, go to Beacon of Speech. Modern Times Are Depressing. I linked the article. But like I said, in the fall it happened. I was an intern in the spring. And what happened is, let me set down the pen, because you're going to be my guy. Okay? This is before active shooters were, you know, a thing, right? So 2 girls go to the principal's office, and they go, hey, Jim, I don't remember his name, but we'll just say Jimmy. Jimmy's going to shoot up the school. And the principal goes, are you sure? Why, you know, that's accurate. And they're like, oh yeah, he told us he was coming. And so they didn't have a protocol because it was 1997, right? And he goes, oh, lock all the doors in the rooms, right? We don't have time to get the kids out of here. We don't have time, you know. And the principal's doing it on his toes, right? And so the kid shows up. And the classes that didn't have locks on them, you know, because, again, it's 1997. They went to other classes. They had desks in front of the doors, right? So the kid runs into class with his guns, right? Tries to get into class because he had a list of kids he specifically wanted to kill, right? And he had gone the year before, so he knew the school district fairly well. You know, he wasn't a stranger, right? So he can't get in any of the rooms, and then I believe it was the shop teacher, who was also an auxiliary policeman, again, it's a small town Minnesota, cornered him in the bathroom, and the kid pulled the gun right on the officer, shot him from almost point-blank range. The guy moved his head, and it grazed his head.
Wow.
He's bleeding like a stuck pig, and he held that student there until another adult came and pinned him down, and they arrested him. And I believe the other adult was a police officer, but I don't remember off the top of my head. But literally, it wasn't a SWAT team. It was 1 policeman, 1 auxiliary policeman to stop a school shooter. Everybody else was literally frozen. And I don't blame them. You know, there's no protocol on it. And then they said since then, all the schools have, you know, the drills, the active shooters, locks on doors, emergency, you know, planning, blah, 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 right? But I was talking to Cousin Dan about it, and he goes, I said, yeah, when I was at LeSueur Henderson, they had an active shooter. And he goes, what? I said, yeah, I went back when I was in grad school. And he goes, what are you talking about? You never told me that story. So I don't know who I told that story to. So it's on the link. Partially.
So were you actually there when that happened?
No. It happened like the second day of fall, and I was done in May, whatever spring was, right? And I wasn't doing that great in grad school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I'm like, how can I would be horrible in that situation. I'm not going back to grad school. I can't deal with this, right? And now I'm dealing with it anyhow. Now if you look right here, sorry guys, now that I'm old and gray, I still got to deal with active shooters all the time. Like I said, went to 2 seminars in the last month. And it was just depressing as hell. Why are we talking about active shooters? Well, because it happens all the time. And like I said, luckily I wasn't there. Because I didn't want to be like the bus driver in the video. Ah, kids!
Pushing kids out of the way.
Like George Costanza on Seinfeld. Everything goes back to Seinfeld. There's a fire. George Costanza's pushing kids out of the way. Uh-oh, do you have a call? Do you have to take this?
Nope.
So you learned more about me today. How do you feel? Just so you know, I would hope that I would not have been pushing kids out of the way.
Well, we'll never know.
Yeah, you never know. It can still happen.
I'll be watching the news one night and I'll see you.
There'll be a video of me. There's a event.
Coward of the county.
Okay, the next article I wrote. The CNN thing. Last week there was a shooting. Do you remember the shooting?
Is that
where they shot
the baseball?
They shot the congressman at the baseball game, right? Now, to me, that was the lead story of the day. It happened at like 7 or 8 in the morning. Would you say that's correct? Mm-hmm. It happened at 7 or 8 in the morning. Guy comes out. He's shooting congressman, right? Luckily, there was a few security people, and they brought him down, right? Now, it was the biggest attack on sitting congressmen since the 1950s. Okay? Now, my question to you is, it's a 2-part question. Okay, let me circle. The 50s and then the CNN thing. Okay? Now, it was the biggest attack on congressmen since the 50s. What happened in the 50s that it was the biggest attack in over 60 years? Do you know what it was? Because I had no idea this had even happened.
Maybe in the 50s?
In the 50s.
Well, the only thing that, and this wasn't in the 50s.
It could have been 60s. I know it was after the 40s.
Was it George Wallace?
No. And I didn't know this until when I wrote the article, okay? In the 50s, a handful of Puerto Ricans burst into Congress and started shooting up Congress, shooting congressmen. And they did it because they wanted Puerto Rico to be independent. So they were, and the headline, I believe it was in the Washington Times, was Puerto Rican terrorists shoot up Congress. And they had pictures. It was like 5 of them. Did you know that there were Puerto Rican terrorists in the 50s?
No, I don't think I ever heard that.
No, well, it goes back to like the shooting in Lesueur. People are like, oh, this crime that's going on now. I'm like, I didn't know Puerto Ricans came and shot up Congress in the 50s. And they're like, oh yeah, that's why there's armed guards at Congress.
Wow. Yeah, no, I didn't know that.
And even when they, like, in Jonestown, who was the congressman they shot there? Where they attacked...
in Jonestown?
Yeah. They killed a congressman in Jonestown. Because he went down to see what was going on, and then they killed a congressman.
Oh, you're talking about Jim Jones, that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. That's another thing I don't know. I mean, I know...
But they killed a congressman there. They attacked Wallace, right? But at the softball game, they're shooting at multiple congressmen. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why it was the biggest story in 60 years. Assassination of congressmen is a big thing in a democracy. 12 hours later, okay? Now, the guy who did it, they found out he was a left-wing nut, right? 12 hours later, Fox News, story 1, attack on congressmen. Story 2, attack on congressmen. Story 3, attack on congressman. Story 4, attack on congressman. Just like in the 50s, and what I did is I showed when the Puerto Rican terrorists came, and, you know, all the stories about the Puerto Rican terrorists, right? I go over to CNN 12 hours after it happens, attack on sitting congressman, the worst one in over 60 years. What is the lead story on CNN?
Something to do with Trump and...
Ding, ding, ding. Donald Trump might have links to Russia. Okay? Now, people wonder why CNN is getting attacked for. Now, I can't think of anything more historically significant than attack on congressmen, right? And again, because they were attacked by a left-wing Bernie Sanders, he worked on the Bernie Sanders campaign, they don't want to publicize any of that because they lean to the left. If he was leaning to the right, the top 20 stories on CNN would have been about him. And on Fox News, they would have been talking about some other idiotic thing about Hillary Clinton. Again, it's amazing about the agendas that people have. And people are like, oh, Fred, what about your agenda? No, that attack on congressmen is historically significant. And again, it's not an attack like I'm going to beat you up. They shot up a congressional softball game, and it was the worst congressional shooting, again, since the 50s. I don't know how that's not blanket coverage on CNN. Well, again, once you come down to the facts, they were mad. Well, you know what? Trump is talking to Russia, right? Which comes back to one of my other articles we'll get back to. Okay? We'll skip around. So another article I did 2 days ago, I did the Putin photo essay. It was my 12 favorite Putin photos. And it was Putin standing in the rain, playing hockey, playing soccer, trying to pick up girls in Russia. I mean, there was no writing. It was all Putin photos. And I said, I don't care how many people that Putin has assassinated, right? It's not more than Stalin. Stalin killed, 50 million. I'm sure Putin only, assassinated, 100. But he's like a guy's guy. He's out there. He's about PR. He's posing with his gun. How many American presidents pose with their gun and they wink towards the camera? You know what I mean? Putin is almost like a cartoon character. And that's why I put him on Beacon of Speech. I mean, he's all about selling masculinity. I'm a masculine guy. I want people to admire me and fear me. And again, I tried to imagine Obama, there's one picture of Obama with a gun. I always do the camera backwards, I'm sorry. Obama with a gun. Right? And he's winking towards the camera. Could you imagine Obama doing that?
You're saying that, imagine if there was one or there is one?
No, do you think that there would ever be one?
No.
No. He's smiling. He's like, hey, I got a picture of Putin, not photoshopped. He's winking at the camera. He's showing everybody how he knows how to operate a gun. I'm sorry, when I did this, I looked at how crooked my thumb is from a soccer injury. So, but that's why I'm getting at is Putin's like, I don't care. I'm all about selling how, what a great man I am. Okay, but that was another article. So I was bashing on CNN. We were talking about Putin. Putin, like I said, he is unabashedly masculine. He's selling how masculine he is. That's why he gets mad when he sees those gay LGBT where they put him in makeup. So, next thing, we're looking at, I did an article about a band called Jarface. I guarantee you don't care about that. Las Vegas Greed. Do you want to talk about Las Vegas Greed?
Yeah.
Why am I talking about Las Vegas Greed?
Now, that's not like a sports team, is it?
No, but close. The Las Vegas Golden Knights is the new hockey team. On the same day, the Las Vegas Knights did their expansion draft, which was this week. Guess what the temperature was in Las Vegas?
106.
115 degrees.
Oh, man.
120 degrees in the desert. Ted Coley, in a nation where we have poor people lining the streets, you know what an extravagant waste of money it is to put a hockey team in the middle of a desert? How many hockey teams are in the middle of the desert in America?
None.
The Phoenix Coyotes. They already have a hockey team in the middle of the desert. And you're going to put another hockey team in the middle of the desert. Now, ignore the part that you're putting a hockey team in the middle of the desert. Why in the hell are you doing it? You're doing it because it's Vegas. If you want to move Phoenix to Las Vegas, I don't care about that. But again, there's heat warnings. It makes no sense whatsoever. Gary Bettman and the rest of the owners are a bunch of idiots. And you don't want to hear about hockey. But so that's why I wrote an article about how Gary Bettman is an idiot. Did you know that there was a brand new hockey team in Vegas?
No, I don't think
so.
Now,
part of the article was, when me and you were young, they always said there'd never be a team in Vegas because of all the gambling, right? Now the gambling's in every state. They're like, oh, well, let's hurry up and put our team in there. Let me ask you questions, and you answer them truthfully, okay? Should there be a hockey team in Vegas?
Should there be a hockey team in Vegas?
All right.
I really don't care.
The correct answer is no. Unless you move Phoenix. You could have a team in Vegas if you move Phoenix.
So you're saying only one desert hockey team?
Only one desert hockey team. Should there be a football team in Vegas?
No.
I think there should be a football team in Vegas.
See?
Now, you tell me why you say no, and I'll tell you why I say yes.
Why do I say no?
Well, do you want me to tell you why I say yes?
Well, because I feel like Vegas has enough nonsense going on. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I don't know, it kind of cheapens football.
Okay. They had a U.S., I'm sorry, not U.S. They had an XFL team in Vegas. Remember the Vince McMahon Football League?
Yeah.
Now, the Oakland Raiders are going to Vegas, right? This is why I think it's a good idea. And you could argue with me, and this is why I brought it up. Okay? LA did not have a football team at all. Correct? And all of a sudden, they took the St. Louis team and put in LA. That was a horrible idea. Keep it in St. Louis, right? San Diego to Los Angeles. That doesn't matter. If you want to put in San Diego and move it to Los Angeles, one team, that's fine. It doesn't make any sense to go from 0 teams to 2 teams in Los Angeles. It just doesn't. Okay? But now they have 2 teams, and both teams, it's idiotic that they put them there. If you're going to move the St. Louis team, you can't move the San Diego team. If you don't move the St. Louis team, it's okay that you move the San Diego team. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The third option was the Oakland Raiders, because they wanted 2 tenants down there. Well, the Raiders, they don't want to be second banana to anybody. I understand that they want their own gig. I understand that. How long has Al Davis said, I want you to build me a stadium? All over the world, I shouldn't always say all over the world, all over America, people get stadiums built. Al Davis wanted his own stadium in his own city, which, if it's the NFL owners are their own little fraternity, I understand what he's saying. Now, in the real world, he's just a greedy bastard like the other 28 or 30 owners. But compared to the other owners, you know, he was being like them. He's not in the same club as Fred and Ted. He's in the NFL owner club. Now, they built a brand new stadium in Santa Clara for the 49ers. And they said, well, Oakland, come on to Santa Clara, which is right between San Francisco and Oakland. And Mark Davis says, I don't want to do that either. Right? So I understand that Mark Davis, Al Davis' son, wanted his own stadium. Would you say that that's legitimate if you're an NFL owner?
Yeah.
So I understand why he did it. And if you put yourself in his shoes, I understand why you did it. Now, if I'm being petty, I'm still saying he's one of the 28 greedy bastards. Okay? But in the business world of his fraternity, it makes sense why he did it. And I even understand why he picked Vegas. Once he's in Vegas, they're going to be a big fish in a small pond. That Vegas hockey novelty, that'll wear out in I don't know, probably 2 years. They'll be getting 8,000 within 5 years. They'll be like a bad Vegas show. So, my next question is, would you put an NBA team in Vegas? And again, there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just asking your opinion.
Yeah, I probably would.
I would too, but I would not expand the NBA because they already have enough crappy teams. Again, if you want to take a team that's underperforming or a team that's in 2 markets, like, I'm trying to think of the example that I used, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. But like there's the Brooklyn Nets and the New York Nets, or New York Knicks, right? If you want to take one of them, move them out of New York. Well, they're not moving out of New York, right? Don't do expansion. What they're going to do is they're going to probably move a team. And if I guessed what team they would move in 5 or 6 years, a team like the Milwaukee Bucks, where nobody wants to play there. We don't want to play in Milwaukee. Well, you've heard it. How many people have said they don't want to play in Cleveland? Right? We want to play in New York or LA. We don't want to play, we don't want to play in Cleveland.
And the thing is, Milwaukee's been around. The Milwaukee Bucks have been around a pretty long time.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Milwaukee just built a stadium, so it wouldn't be Milwaukee, but a team like Portland, right? Would Portland go? Sacramento might have been a candidate, but they just built a new stadium. Who's to say they're not going to say Sacramento is the team in Northern California, and the Golden State Warriors go to Vegas? You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They can't win forever, and I'm saying in 5 or 6 years. But me and you agree, NBA to Vegas, it makes sense. Because the players aren't going to bitch. We don't want to go to Las Vegas. They all love it. They'll all be beating a path to go there. MLS, soccer. Should there be a team in Las Vegas?
Soccer team in Vegas.
Yes.
I would say no.
I would say you are absolutely correct. You cannot play, like again, last week it was 120 degrees. MLS runs from spring till fall. You can't play soccer when it's 120 degrees in a desert. Okay? Not unless you have an indoor field. If you don't have an indoor field, you're not in MLS. Right? So it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Which means MLS will probably start considering it. My throat is just raw as hell today, so I apologize for drinking the Coke. Thank you for sharing. And then, what was the other sports league? We got, baseball. Same principle as MLS. Would you ever play baseball?
No.
No way. But they could be like, oh, well, it's as hot in Vegas as it is in Phoenix, and there's the Diamondbacks. It's as hot as it is in Arlington, Texas in the summer.
See, I kind of, my reasoning is probably different from yours. I think of baseball as more of a sacred sport, you know what I mean?
I agree.
And I just think of Las Vegas as like cheapening things.
Oh yeah. Well, I agree.
And I also feel like football is a sacred sport, but I feel like it's already been
tainted.
It's starting to get cheapened.
Oh yeah.
Already.
Yeah. Well, and that's
it used to be, a sacred.
To me, in the 80s and 90s, they were like, how do we protect the sport? And now it is literally a race to the bottom. Who can make the most money?
Football?
Yeah. Who can make the most money? Blah blah blah. Right? And I'm sorry, I got distracted because yesterday I went to an Arena League game. How much do you know about Arena League football?
Very little.
I know very little also. But I also know that there's like 15 teams, right? Well, I go to Arena League yesterday, and I looked up before I went to the Arena League game, just to see how the Gladiators were doing. They were like 17-1, like 2 years ago, right? Well, they were like 3-7. I'm like, well, you can't be perfect forever. There's only 5 teams in the whole league. They're teetering on folding.
There's 5 teams?
5 teams in the Arena League. Like, I had no idea there were only 5 teams left.
Now, wait a minute. Does that include both, like, what conferences or...
Yes, everything.
5 teams total in that league.
5 teams in the arena.
The league that the Gladiators.
Yes. I was stunned. I didn't know that.
Well, what about 3 years ago? Wasn't it about like 10 or 12?
Yes. Yes, and that's what I'm saying. I'm like, I did not know. So when you go back to
now, who's isn't there somebody famous? Doesn't like John Bon Jovi or somebody own part of one of those teams?
Bon Jovi and I think Jaworski own the Philadelphia Soul, right?
Ron Jaworski?
Ron Jaworski. And the Philadelphia Soul are a traditionally good team. And that's who the Gladiators played yesterday, okay? The Soul just murdered them. They were winning 42 to 14 at halftime, okay? And the Soul are undefeated. They're not going anywhere, right? But it goes back to you remember George Steinbrenner said he didn't care about the rest of the teams in Major League Baseball? And if it was up to him, it would be the Yankees and no one else. He would just find scrubs to play against and run up his record. Okay? Well, in the Arena League, you still have to play somebody. And it makes me wonder, is the Arena League shrinking because of head injuries and leg injuries? Or is it not a sustainable business model? You see what I'm saying?
I can't believe there's 5 teams.
I couldn't believe it either. I was stunned. I had no idea. And that's why I wanted to ask you.
How do you even have a league with that many teams?
You have like a bye week every 5 weeks, and you play each team 4 times, which sucks when you're a football team.
But the championship game. It's like having a championship game in a league where there's 2 teams.
Yeah.
It's like, boy, who's going to end up there?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't know if it's on hiatus, if it's on... Don't forget, it wasn't that long ago where the Arena League had to suspend operations for 1 year. I think it was 6 or 7 years ago, in order to restructure their business model. And I'm like, well, it's like a certain airline. You can only go through so many bankruptcies before you don't exist anymore.
Now, how many teams are left in the WNBA?
That is different, Ted. The WNBA is subsidized by the NBA. Okay? Now, just like the NFL, all their players beat their girlfriends and wives, but so it looks like they don't. They wear pink for 1 game a week. The WNBA is the NBA's way of saying, listen, we love women. Our players might be horrible towards women with, 8 moms in 8 different cities, but we support women because we give X $10 million a year to WNBA, $4 million. You see what I'm saying? The WNBA is subsidized. That's why most of the teams in the WNBA are in NBA cities. Because
now, Cleveland doesn't have a WNBA.
No, but they used to have one. There used to be the Cleveland Rockers.
Yeah, that does ring a bell.
See, even you know the Cleveland Rockers. You can't see on camera, but Ted's playing with the fidget spinner under the table. No, you're allowed to. That's why I brought it, so you could tell me if it was addicting or not. My teeth look like they had fallen out because of the shadow. But the point of my story is, Las Vegas for hockey is horrible. Okay? And I understand why they're doing it for the NFL. The NFL is trying to bleed, even though they're making billions of dollars, they're trying to bleed every nickel out of the rock that is football. And again, they're businessmen. I'm just saying that's the way it is. And like I said, I can't imagine baseball going to Vegas. But again, it goes back to the greed thing. What's best for hockey? Is what's best for hockey putting a team in Vegas? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But there's nobody to tell Bettman. He doesn't do what's best for hockey. He does best for a business model. It's not a long-term business model. It's a short-term business model. Again, corporations are ruining things. And you knew we would circle back to that because that's the way I
see. I think, and you know how much I love football, but I think that football has gotten too big.
Well, that's the thing. Rush Limbaugh, when I was in college, I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh a lot, and then I took like a 10-year break, right? And now he says he doesn't love football anymore because they're trying to push the liberal agenda into football, right? And it's like, oh, I can't listen to that either, right? But it's not about football anymore. It's about rules and money. The NFL is the no fun league, right? Well, if you dance, you get a 15-yard flag. You see what I'm saying? And they worry about things that they shouldn't be worried about. You know, what happened to the Lyle Alzado days? Now, I know Lyle Alzado is dead, but where you're going to go crazy, right? Drink, smoke, do whatever, tear things up on the field, and then that's your own business. You know what I mean? Well, people will be like, well, he took steroids. Okay, well, he wasn't the only one. Steroids are illegal. Okay? It's a real easy fix. If you take steroids, you can get arrested. You don't have to do all this rigmarole with testing and stuff. You know what I mean? You could bring it into a law enforcement arena.
Well, I remember when, steroids were a big problem in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Howard Stern said he basically thought that they should be allowed.
Right.
He goes, I'm going to start an all-steroid baseball league. He goes, I guarantee it'll be more popular than the...
Well, but Ted, that's the whole thing. They're like, well, it wasn't banned back then. It shouldn't have mattered. It was illegal, right? Back in those days, it was illegal to kill people. Well, if you kill somebody, well, then you can't play baseball. If you're doing steroids, you should be arrested. You can't do steroids. It's that simple. And if all this rigmarole about, like Josh Gordon was drinking, oh, jeez, I'm tired of this, right? They put their noses where it doesn't belong, and they're like any other corporations. They fix problems that don't exist, and real problems they don't address. And that's how the NFL rolls. And like I said, I've said this before. I've written about it. Anybody who will listen. The NFL is peaking now. And in a generation, it's going to be boxing. Because it's getting to a point where it's going to be as corrupt as boxing.
Yeah, how many people do you know actually pay attention to boxing?
Nobody. Nobody. Even Mike Trevisano, the only one who talks about it, he even said, well, I don't love it like I once did. It's like, well, yeah, because you can't name any boxers. Oh, talking about sports, we'll circle back to my last article in a minute because it's a free speech thing. Tony Rizzo, my favorite punching bag lately, right? You know what he said? You know what he said about Tiger Woods this week?
Tony Rizzo. I don't know. I guess leave him alone. You don't know the problems he has.
More or less, yes. Tony Rizzo said, you know how I've told you over and over golf is not a sport, it's a rec activity? Tiger Woods and his back problem, he is paying, I wrote it down. He is paying the price for a violent swing. So if he didn't have such a violent swing, he wouldn't have back problems. So all of his, now again, you don't know what drugs he's on. Tiger Woods had that DUI, right? And you find out that he wasn't drinking at all. He was taking some sort of prescription drugs. And he's had, 4 back surgeries?
Which I assume is because of that.
Right. Now, he is saying because Tiger Woods was such an athlete, he is paying, I'm like, I can't hear that. Tiger Woods is not paying the price for a violent swing. He is paying the price for live fast, die young. Excuse me. That's what I get for drinking all the Coke. For the live fast, die young lifestyle. So if he hurt his back, you know what it's probably from? It's probably from crashing his SUV into a fire hydrant when his wife was chasing him with a golf club. Okay? I don't want to hear about how it's a violent swing. He made $100 million minimum. Okay? That swing is not what causes back problems. It is a violent swing. That's a bunch of crap. Okay, lighten up your swing. Well, then I can't hit it 300 yards. You already made $100 million. Take a little break, warm up for the senior tour.
I still think it's funny that out of all the things that she could have chased him with, it was a golf club.
Yeah, that's the ultimate irony. That's why it's awesome.
It just shows you that everything in his life is golf.
Well, yeah, everything. And again, me and you have talked about it. He's one of those 24/7. I do golf 24/7. Oh yeah, except for the 12 hours a day you're chasing waitresses and chasing tail.
It would be like Eric Clapton's wife chasing him with a guitar.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't write this down. We might come back to this. Grace Slick. Grace Slick said that she slept with a lot of famous people when she was younger, and most of them were bad. But very few does she regret sleeping with. But, you know, you always regret what you didn't do, not what you did do. Or it's better, whatever the saying goes, right? She said the only person she ever regrets not sleeping with is she goes looking back and talking to people is she regrets not sleeping with Jimi Hendrix. Because she said he kept approaching her and she kept saying no. And she said that if she could go back, that's the only guy she wishes she'd go back and sleep with. So do you wish that you could go back in the time machine and sleep with Grace Slick?
I don't know. Hearing of all the people that she has.
The alcohol and the probable diseases and the nature of being passed around with Grace Slick. I don't know. I think Grace Slick's awesome. For the record, I think she's great.
So you would?
Oh, probably not. I would have been scared to death of what was down there, but I still respect her. I still like her. So, blah 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 blah. Since we're talking about Grace Slick, Rolling Stones. Did you quickly want to talk about Keith Richards? Because you know more about this than I do. Ted dropped a fidget spinner.
Yeah, I'll talk about that.
This week, Keith Richards' first wife died. And what about Keith Richards' first wife is memorable? What is going to be on her tombstone?
Heroin?
She did so many drugs that it alarmed Keith Richards. Okay, that's saying something. Okay, and again, you know, like you said, the irony of chasing Eric Clapton with a guitar. It's the same thing. If Keith Richards says you did too many drugs, that's saying something. So, talking about hot pieces of tale from the 60s, right? She married Keith Richards. They had 3 kids together. And basically, she was with, who was the original drummer? Brian Jones?
Oh, well, he wasn't the drummer. Brian Jones was a guitarist.
Okay. Yeah. So,
but he played a lot of other weird stuff.
She was with Brian Jones. Brian Jones went crazy, left the Rolling Stones, right? And she said, screw that, I'm more in it for the Rolling Stones than for the guy. So out goes Brian Jones, in with Keith Richards. And Keith Richards was mad at Mick Jagger because Mick Jagger supposedly slept with her. Yeah. Holy cow, Mick Jagger slept with... Again, going back to the... you know, holy cow, isn't it startling that Mick Jagger slept with a woman? You know what I mean? So... Again, all these things are startling, but she died this past week, and I don't know her name. Do you know her name?
Anita Pallenberg.
How do you know that?
Well, because I know stuff. No, I know things about the Rolling Stones. Not like I'm not as much of an expert as like. Well, I'm not saying I'm an expert on the Beatles, but I know more about the Beatles. But
right.
But yeah, I know. I've read stuff about the Stones. Yeah.
So did you like, as a general question, did you like her? Did you not like her? Were you like, she's going to break up the Rolling Stones?
My impression of her is that I did not like her.
Okay. Who did you like more?
I think she was kind of a dark figure. Somebody who was...
She had a dark aura.
Kind of, I think she was very intelligent, but I think she was kind of manipulative, And
so, did she cause more harm to the Rolling Stones than Yoko Ono did to the Beatles?
No. Because the Stones kept going.
Yeah. The Stones are still going now. I told you. I think I told you maybe last week in a speech where it was in the Daily Mail, it had 3 of the Rolling Stones coming out of the party, and they were leaning on their girlfriends. And they were all in their 30s and 40s, and it said, Stones not hungover, Stones can't walk. Because they were so old. And I'm like, that's funny that they're digging on the Rolling Stones, you know. Back in the 60s, you would never hear a newspaper talk bad about the Rolling Stones like that. Now, they might say sex, drugs, rock and roll will lock up your children, but they wouldn't be making fun of them like that. See, Ted, I'm telling you, it's addicting. You can hold on to it. I'm sorry. Ted's still going at the fidget spinner. You can see how he's going. Like I said, if we had a bigger camera, it would be funnier that the thing. So I'm sorry to do
I thought you were going to say if we had a bigger fidget spinner.
Well, that's what's going to come next. Because that's got 3 prongs. I've seen the one with 2. I've seen the one with 5. The next thing is going to be big fidget spinners. And like I said, they already want to license them where it's like Iron Man fidget spinner or, you know, neon fidget spinner or fluorescent fidget spinners. Like I said, this is the first wave you're looking at. And like I said, Toys R Us, I think I read an article, oh geez, it might have been on Forbes magazine, and I think it was Toys R Us's $10 million bet on fidget spinners. And again, I think they wanted to spend $10 million hoping to make $50 million. So, but like I said, they better hurry up because now they're almost like I said, my daughter, just this past weekend, was at a fidget spinner kiosk, which was all fidget spinners. That's all you could buy, was fidget spinners. And I'm like, holy cow.
I just can't believe how, like, well-made this appears to be.
Yeah, well, yeah, that one, the first one my son had wasn't that well made, the $3.99 one. But this one, I believe, was $5.99. So it's like one step up. But again, it goes back to what Joe was saying. Joe, the empty chair, he was supposed to be here. He was in a tank yesterday, and he's not here today. Right? But Joe says you got to come up with a concept where you can make $1 million on something that everybody would want. And then a year later, they just would throw it away after we made our money.
So Joe thinks you, instead of devoting your time to Beacon of Speech, you should devote your time to coming up with something like this.
Yes. Well, this is Joe. Joe always, if we made money, let's pretend like me and you made money, right? Joe would be here, okay? Joe has to make money because he's got the twins who are 1 year old, blah, 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 right? But Joe is all about making money because he works his ass off, right? If we were paying him, Joe would be here. So he wants us to come up with something like this. And like I said, I like it, you know, if we turned off the light, it would glow and stuff, because I think it's soaked up the thing. But again, I'm going to put it on the computer, probably ruin the computer. There's not supposed to be magnets in here, but there probably is. It's probably, oh, let's see. We'll turn the lights back off, see, it's not really glowing that good for the camera.
Look at this, almost looks like night vision goggles.
Yeah, it does. Ooh, it's the middle of the day. Here, I'll hand that back. Because I never thought, I don't think there's magnets in there, but if there is, I don't want to ruin the computer. We'll put that back over there. But, again, that's Joe's future. Joe is spending 60 hours a week thinking of what can we come up with to do that, and then we have to try and sell ourselves. Of course, he's going to cut me and you out. You know how I always joke around, one day I'm going to fire you or you're going to fire me? Joe's already looking to cut me and you out and do the millionaire of the thing.
Now, you obviously don't have to say, but have you ever had an idea that you thought might, you know, like a product like this?
Oh, not that good. Not where, like, eventually everybody would do it. I've only had, like, bad ideas. Like,
but you have had ideas. Like,
oh,
hey,
yeah,
you know, maybe people would buy this.
Yeah, I always thought that everybody has to cut their lawn, right? This was one of the ideas I had when I was 20, but I'm not mechanically inclined. And you can steal it if you want. You have to cut your lawn. I have to cut my lawn. Everybody has to cut lawns, right? I used to cut my parents' lawn. Why don't they make a lawnmower that cuts your lawn and then it runs on grass clippings, right? And then that way it's a self-contained unit. You don't have to buy gas. You'd save all kinds of gas, right? And you're still running it on biomass. It would be a cousin of like a diesel engine. You know how you could pour what is it, cooking oil in a diesel engine and it'll run, right?
So it would, actually, I think the Flintstones already had that. Remember how they would cut their grass? It would be
the
like,
dinosaur.
Yeah.
Yeah, the dinosaur would eat the grass.
Yeah, that was sort of like that.
So that was my idea, but I was never smart enough to come up with any. But it was just an idea, right? Just like Steve's idea of the monuments along the side of the road.
Or another thing is...
Did you tell Jen about that, by the way?
About what?
The monument book? Did somebody
No.
Steve to it? Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Or Trump's idea of making the wall a solar wall. Did you hear that?
I did hear that.
That was hilarious.
The same week I read about the solar wall, I read that China has a giant solar farm the size of a city. I'm like, they have a real solar farm, and Trump wants to build a solar wall, and I'm like, oh my God. And again, it's back to the analogy of I can't believe we're teaching kids about school shooting and crisis management. I can't believe that we're talking about building a solar wall between America and Mexico. I'm like, what year is this? Oh my Lord.
Well, another funny thing was Trump saying to Comey, you better hope there's no tapes.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, I'll let everybody know in a week or so if there's tapes. And he's like, no, there's not. And he goes, I was just saying, you better hope there's not.
Yeah. I'm just spitballing. Ted, like I said, when we started Beacon of Speech, okay, and I thank you again for doing Beacon of Speech with me, okay, but when we started doing Beacon of Speech, sometimes we throw ideas out and we spitball and bounce things off, and even if it's absurd, right? But you don't run a country, I don't run a country, okay? When the president is spitballing, it just makes me nervous as hell.
Yeah, but I think he's doing that I think everything with him is a negotiation.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me wrong, you are 100% right. Because Dennis Rodman went to North Korea and they let that kid Otto, what's his name, out.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but supposedly Dennis Rodman gave Kim a copy of the book Art of the Deal.
Yeah, I think I heard that.
And he told Kim, Donald Trump you can make deals with him. Read his book. And I'm like, you can't be serious right now. You're telling a leader of another country, even how crappy of a country it is, to read your book. And I'm like, this is not real.
Now, is Dennis Rodman a fan of Trump?
He was on The Apprentice.
Dennis Rodman was?
Yeah, he was on one of The Apprentices. I don't remember which one. But he was on The Apprentice. So that's why I'm like, oh, jeez. But to be honest with you, I love Dennis Rodman. I think Dennis Rodman's awesome. Okay? And I'm telling you, the Bulls ain't winning those championships without Dennis Rodman. I like the way Dennis Rodman carries himself. I like Dennis Rodman. Okay? Even if he goes to North Korea, I still like Dennis Rodman. Okay?
So you're saying Dennis Rodman is a class act.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's a class act. I'm saying I like him. Here's a good analogy. I don't like Tiger Woods, okay? He's a big fake, okay? But I like John Daly, okay? John Daly doesn't go around going, oh, my back, I torqued it, oh, right? John Daly, even if he's a big goofball, is real, okay? Now, I think Dennis Rodman is a big goofball, but I think he's real too. I don't think he's manufactured and, I think Dennis Rodman is Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
He's a big kid who can rebound, who's smart at basketball. And like I said, when basketball's over, you have to redefine what you do. Well, he redefines himself selling the Dennis Rodman brand. But I don't think he markets himself. You see what I'm saying? I think he markets what Dennis Rodman is, not what he wants you to see. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, no.
What you got?
He's sincere.
What you see is what you get. And that's why I like Dennis Rodman. So that's why I'm like, and again, he's got those 3 championships.
Yeah, he doesn't have an ulterior motive. He's being himself.
Yeah. And like I said, if he's a knucklehead, just still, at least he's honest. there's a couple of free speech things. I didn't want to talk about them first because they were kind of dry. Okay? But there's two things. First of all, the Supreme Court still only has 8 justices. Why haven't they confirmed that 9th guy yet?
Oh, they haven't?
No.
Gorsuch?
Yeah, I don't think they've confirmed him yet.
I thought they did.
Well, maybe they did, and I missed it. But I'm going to read this verbatim because I don't want to mess it up.
Well, no, maybe they didn't.
Okay, this was I believe it was on CNN. Okay? Today, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 8-0, and it was 8-0. That's why I was wondering where the 9th guy was. Maybe Ruth Gator Ginsburg had the flu.
Ruth Buzzy Ginsburg.
But it was 8-0, so it doesn't matter if there's 8 or 9. 8-0, it doesn't matter. In favor of the Asian American dance rock band, the Slants. Okay, the name of their band is the Slants. Now, how do you get a band? Why did they name themselves the Slants? Because they have slanty eyes, right? Well, they're Asian. They're talking about themselves this way, right? Holding that the First Amendment protects the rights of the band's members to register a trademark in their band's offensive name. At issue in Matal versus Tam was a federal law prohibiting the registration of any trademark that may disparage or bring into contempt or disrepute any persons living or dead. The Patent and the Trademark Office cited this provision and when they refused to register a trademark.
You're right, this is dry.
I'm sorry. So, but basically what they're saying is the name of the band is the Slants. And they said that is offensive. And they're like, no, it's not offensive. It's protected under free speech. And the Patent Office is like, we don't care if you're Asian and you say it's the Slants. It's still offensive. Well, the Supreme Court protects your offensive speech. Because I have read maybe 20 articles in the last 2 weeks when I'm doing all these articles, which we're going to circle into our next topic. What is the difference between free speech and hate speech? You see what I'm saying? And I'm sorry, my back was a little sore there. Oh, my back is from doing Beacon of Speech. I did Beacon of Speech. My back hurts. The Supreme Court is laying out where the lines are between hate speech and free speech. And the Slants, all they're doing is they're helping put the line where it goes. Now, what I eventually want to do, and this is why I brought it up, I'm trying to work on a graphic that has a spectrum where free speech is and put it on the front of Beacon of Speech. Okay? And basically, there's only a tiny little... I keep doing it the wrong way. A tiny little sliver on the left and a tiny little sliver on the right where free speech, yeah, there you go, should be restricted. And then there's a gray area, like holding Trump's head up. Okay, that's the gray area. Because, you know, last time we did Beacon of Speech, we were talking about Guar and Kathy Griffin, right? You got a big purple hand up here. What's that on my hand? Oh, nothing. It was the way the light was. So anyhow, the graphic would delineate where the free speech lines are. So anyhow, the reason I bring that up is, in this case, the Slants have delineated where the line is when it comes to trademark law. Okay? The reason I bring it up is probably the most controversial thing I wrote in the last two weeks is an article called F Free Speech. Okay? Now, do you know where Evergreen State is?
Evergreen State?
Yes. Evergreen State College.
Is it in Washington or Oregon?
Very good. It is in Oregon. Evergreen State is basically the Oberlin College of Oregon. If you had a spectrum from left to right, Oberlin would be the farthest on the left of any college in Ohio. We know Oberlin College. It's right down the street from me, a little farther down the street from you, but you're familiar with Oberlin College, right?
Yeah.
There was an article not that long ago that Obama was deeply in love with one of the professors at Oberlin College, and she broke it off with him. It was very sad. Yeah. Yeah, I'll show you the article. It's a visual.
Was this something that happened recently?
Yeah, it was like a month ago. It was like after he got out of office. He was deeply in love with this girl, and she broke it off.
Obama.
Yeah. Back when he was in college, not recently, not when he was president. Like, it'd be like, oh, remember that girl you dated in high school?
And she broke it off with him.
She broke up with him. And they said she's a famous left-wing professor at Oberlin College. But the point of my story is, where was I? Blah, 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 blah. Evergreen State. So, they got these snowflakes, okay? And they're interviewing them for a news story, okay? And not in their private area. They're interviewing them on a news story. Like, a reporter is like, tell us about what is making you mad. And basically, what is making them mad is they had a... I don't want to say it wrong. LGBTQ. They had a LGBTQ rally, right? And then they said, if you are white, we don't want you to come. Okay? If you're white and straight and, right? And there was a left-wing, like, it's so far off the screen, I can't even say it. The teacher was a left-wing teacher, but the students were far on the left wing, right? And so they attacked their teacher, and the left-wing teacher said, listen, because of freedom of speech, you don't want to, you want to have a public discourse for what you have to say. And they said, oh, no, we don't. You have had your say for 200 years since America was founded. Your time for free speech is over, right? Which is a dangerous thing to say. And they said, well, you already had your free speech. You had your free speech for 200 years. It's now our turn. Okay? Now, when I wrote the article for Beacon of Speech, I'm like, listen, you can't do it that way. You know what I mean? You can't take away one group's free speech because you say it's your turn. Now, what was shocking about this article was they weren't attacking somebody on the right. It was somebody on the far left attacking somebody on the middle left. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, you aren't even listening to people on your own team. Mm-hmm. And when I wrote the article, I was like, this is a dangerous thing, because it's not the first time I've read this. You've seen it on the news where people are like, where it's getting worse and worse, where it's like, you don't get free speech. We don't want you to talk here on the campus.
It's almost like the Shia and the Sunni Muslims.
Yes.
You know, they're both Muslims, but they're basically enemies.
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you right now, it's funny that you bring that up, because the Sunnis and the Shiites, they're in a big to-do over in Saudi Arabia and Iran, and even though you don't watch it, do you have on your cable system Al Jazeera?
No, I do not.
Okay. One of the things that Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates want is they cut Qatar off. Qatar. And now they can only get their goods through the sea. They're cut off through the land, right? Well, now they said one of the ways to stop the embargo is they want Qatar to close down Al Jazeera. This is not America trying to shut down Al Jazeera. This is not Great Britain trying to shut down Al Jazeera. This is Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates trying to shut down Al Jazeera.
That's what this whole thing is over?
Yep.
Just that?
Well, again, it's a number of things, but the one thing that's really gaining publicity is these other countries want Qatar to shut down Al Jazeera.
Is that where Al Jazeera is based?
Yeah, it's based out of Qatar. And I didn't know. I thought Al Jazeera was out of Saudi Arabia. I didn't know it was Qatar until I looked it up. I knew it was over there. I knew it wasn't Iran, but I knew that Al Jazeera was funded by boat and boatloads of oil money, right? And again, Russia's not trying to shut them down. England's not trying to shut them down. America's not trying to shut them down. It is amazing that one of their neighbors is trying to shut down a news network. Now, I don't know enough about it if they're like, well, Al Jazeera's publicizing Shiite over Sunni, or Sunni over Shiite, because I don't have it written down. I apologize. When I was in college, I took comparative Middle Eastern religions, and it confused the hell out of me. Okay? But, again, we're not in America. There is no free speech law. You see what I'm saying? Their whole free speech realm is different than our free speech realm. See, Ted's looking at... You see Ted's face. He's looking at the fidget spinner. The point is that on Beacon of Speech, I do absurd things like write about bands called Jarface. But then I do talk about, because I didn't get to see you last week, about how free speech is under attack. Again, it's from attack from the left, and it's from attack from the right. It's from the attack on the far left, like these snowflakes at Evergreen State. You cannot say you don't get dialogue anymore, right? And it's attack from the right, from corporations. If I'm telling you, right now, the last episode me and you did, we had 5 views. 2 episodes ago, we had 25 views, and it was mostly the last week of school where my daughter goes, and they were making fun of Beacon of Speech. They were watching it instead of doing their classwork, right? So
you're saying the last one only had 5?
Yeah, the last one we did only had 5. But let's say we had 100, okay? Say we had 100 views, and there were 100 unique views, and there were 100 people who said, we think you're awesome, we're going to tell our friends. You know, it's like the Breck commercial. We're going to tell 5 friends, and they're going to tell 5 friends, we're going to tell 5 friends. We would probably have a letter from the NFL saying, contact your lawyers for all the crap you have said about us. And about how we're just flat-out greedy bastards who don't care about anything. Okay? The only reason we're getting away with bashing on the NFL is because nobody listens to us. And again, and I said this when I did my pirate radio station, Radio Anarchy, right? If I was successful, the government would have shut it down. Because nobody cared, I was free to do it until I stopped doing it. Now, again, we're making our own path here, but eventually we want to get paid, so Joe joins us again, right? Mm-hmm. And so we don't have to try and compete with fidget spinners. Actually, Ted's getting good at this. I wish you could see under the table. He's got the fidget spinner, but he's doing it better than I have been doing it. So, see, I jinxed you. Now you hit the camera. Okay, let's see. See, I jinxed you. You were doing it for like 3 minutes straight.
Well, that's because I wasn't.
You weren't aiming for the camera. You had it at a good hand level, not up here where your hand's more unstable. See, we're both watching the fidget spinner. He's trying to bring it up to camera view.
Now, can Alex do this?
Oh yeah, Alex can do. Alex is like, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? He like rotates it on his elbow.